Finesta windows, beautiful and durable designs. Installation से maintenance की lifelong customer service. आपके घर में Finesta नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Fine, finer, Finesta.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
You know, first when Sayyara released and we as audience realized, oh my God, what is happening? You know, when did you realize it? Like, it's like, I didn't expect this, what is happening? Like that wave that hits you.
You know, the first thing that really hit me, I'm telling you, was a month back actually, to be honest, is when Adisa saw the film. And he saw a very loose cut and he decided the release date. But he was always, like me and Akshay were so into making the film, I think, along with Sumanna and all. Sometimes when you're so into it and you know, you don't realize, you don't see it from, and then he saw it from a third person perspective. I mean, he was always super confident about the film. And he had actually had this talk with me about how I've done. And yeah, we all grew up. I was in the 8th grade when I saw Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge and said I want to make a love story like this. For a person like him to say that, you know, you've made a great film. All he had asked for me was to make your best film for me. And I did, and I'm just glad that, so that was the first thing, you know, and that validation was great. I wasn't shouting over the roof for it. It gives you a lot of confidence at that moment, you know, for the person who's actually put his money where it is, and he wasn't talking about anything else, but on a very unassembled film at that time, could feel the emotion and be listening. But it was the first time we felt that we made something special. But yes, once the numbers came in, I think then it was Akshay.
The advance.
Yeah, and the advances came in, and then people were sending me messages, and all they said, no, don't listen to anyone. So I at one point just put my phone off and said, you know, this is getting too out of hand. And then in the night we got the number.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders.
Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu. On the program this evening. If you read the papers this morning, you would have seen massive ads and articles of two major road opening projects in the National Capital Region. One, the official inauguration by the Prime Minister of a new road that links Gurgaon and Delhi, which sees some of the most horrific traffic anywhere, and another also inaugurated by the Prime Minister, about 76 kilometers in length, which links to the same Dwarka Expressway, but one that connects the northwest and the southwest of Delhi and Gurgaon. While the Dwarka Expressway linking Gurgaon to Delhi has been opened on a trial basis, I decided to check it out to see if it is a solution for some of India's biggest traffic nightmares between Gurgaon and Delhi and vice versa. Well, that report is coming up. But first, let me put some context to it and explain in detail what the plans are to decongest not just that part of Delhi, the west, but also all of Delhi. Now, if it works, it'll be a game changer. Otherwise, quite frankly, we may be doomed to spending our lives on the roads. We can talk about politics another day. We can talk about big international affairs another day. But today, let's talk about the time that we spend on the roads in the national capital and see if there is a workable solution. That's what I spent the day doing today. So, in order to put this in perspective, it's important to look at maps. Now, this is the entire Delhi NCR region. So what we're going to do is take a look at this particular stretch, which is the Dwarka E-Way. Now, we've got a close-up of it. Now, this is the stretch which I actually visited earlier on today. I went on the road from Mahipalpur near the Delhi airport. I took this bypass and I reached the Nangloi Najafgarh road instead of taking the normal road. But I'll come to my report later on. Let's in fact move on to the other details of what we are talking about. So let's have the map up on the screen one by one, all the pointers, so that we can talk exactly about the stretch. So let's have the graphics up which we worked on so that we can actually have an explainer on what the entire situation is. Do we have the graphics? No. All right. So let's take a look now at this point. Now this is the Delhi NCR, the National Capital Region. All of these roads have actually been constructed within the last little while in order to enhance connectivity to and out of Delhi. But let's move to the next page, which gives you an idea of the road which has been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Two stretches, one from Mahipalpur over here, going to Gurgaon over here. In the process, you bypass this particular stretch. This is where one sees an incredible amount of traffic. It was this stretch from here that I went back and forth on to give you a report card, and that's coming up on just whether this bypass works. Now remember, the bypass has been open for a while on a trial basis, but it's open now completely. Now that's the Dwarka Expressway, and then there is another 76-kilometer stretch which is called the Urban Extension Road 2. That's also been inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Now why is that particularly substantial? Because in fact it links up to certain national highways all across, one which goes to Kanyakumari, one which goes past Rohtak, one which goes elsewhere as well. So there is the Urban Extension Road and the Dwarka Expressway. Now, what the ultimate goal is to have at the Urban Extension Road, which stretches all across Delhi over here. That would be the Urban Extension Road in this area. Then there is the Eastern Peripheral Expressway, which has already been constructed. And then there is the Western Peripheral Expressway, which has already been constructed. So let me try and explain why we are doing this. What we are trying to show over here is that there is an effort at trying to create ring roads around Delhi. This is the Western Peripheral Expressway. It leads on to the Eastern Peripheral Expressway. It goes all around Delhi. Then inside that, there is the stretch which I have been talking about now, which is the Urban Extension Road and the Dwarka Expressway, which leads up to this entire stretch, which will then be constructed, the Urban Extension Road, the eastern section, which needs to come up. That's going to link up as well. And what we already have inside Delhi is the outer ring road and the inner ring road. Now, will this actually solve the problems of this entire area in commuting, getting in and out of the national capital? Theoretically, it should help in decongesting Delhi, because traffic which isn't looking to get into Delhi can actually use a lot of these highways to try and get across the national capital region, and movement from Delhi outside through the new highways which have been created, that becomes quite important. But again, let's focus a little bit on this particular stretch from the Indira Gandhi International Airport, Mahipalpur over here, where I drove across to Gurgaon and back. How much time did it take me to traverse this? And ultimately, I wanted to see how much time it would take me to get from this area right to the heart of New Delhi, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, that particular area. Let's take a look at my report card. For those living in the National Capital Region, you would know that commuting in and out of Delhi from places like Gurgaon is a nightmare at the best of times, particularly during rush hour traffic. Yesterday, the Prime Minister inaugurated two key stretches of road. One is the Dwarka Expressway going up to Gurgaon, and another one is called UER, or the Urban Extension Road 2, which links three major highways to the northwest of Delhi, to areas such as Indira Gandhi International Airport, and it also links up to the Dwarka Expressway. Now, to be certain, the Dwarka Expressway had been opened up to traffic on a trial basis earlier on, we decided to get a sense of what the big deal was all about. So from one end of the Dwarka Expressway on the Gurgaon side to where it actually enters the Mahipalpur region of Delhi, it has taken us exactly 20 minutes. Now that could be a game changer, but the fact of the matter is this. Just look at the traffic which merges onto this new road, because this is the same stretch of highway and there doesn't appear to be any way of avoiding that. So yes, there are quite clearly bottlenecks which do exist. The new stretch is fabulous. There are multiple lanes, there's an underpass, there's an overpass, all that is great. It will certainly save people a great deal of time. It'll help to decongest this stretch. But once you're here on the Delhi side, it's going to take as much time. So it took us 1 hour, 5 minutes from the start of the Dwarka Expressway in Gurgaon to get to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in the heart of Delhi. Now that at 3 p.m. in the afternoon or so is not exactly incredible. Yes, it is much better than if you were to take the normal highway. But quite frankly, there are larger questions which need to be asked. Can anything realistically be done to improve the condition of the national capital's roads? Are there simply too many cars? Can public transportation actually improve to an extent, to a point where people decide not to take their cars? These are larger questions. For now, does it help? Yes, it does. But once you get to Delhi, it's a straight bottleneck, as it's always been. With Aman Singh, Vishnu Show for NDTV. All right, well, that's a reality check on one part of that highway, the highway going from Gurgaon to Delhi and vice versa. Does that really make a difference? And what about this entire business of several ring roads which have actually been formed? Is that a solution for Delhi's traffic mess? Joining us now, Sameer Jasuja, founder and managing director of Prop Equity. Zenith Chaudhary, a resident of Gurugram. Also Pradeep Rawat, another resident, and Dr. PSN Rao, a professor of urban planning at SPA. Dr. Rao, let me come to you first. I've tried to explain in as simple terms as possible what the situation is. But I found in my report that once you get into Delhi from Gurgaon, using this absolutely fantastic road with a wonderful tunnel and artwork on both sides, and then there are bridges as well, you hit a stretch of road which is a massive bottleneck, and things don't really change once you enter Delhi. So it's relief, all right, but it's only temporary. Is that your sense as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Vishnu. I couldn't agree with you more. I live in Gurgaon and I work in Delhi. And I use this stretch of the road at least twice every day. And I've been doing this for years now. And this solution that has been attempted at this point in time is only a partial solution. Maybe some of the vehicles would get diverted. But the problem is that a very large population living in Gurgaon works in Delhi, and vice versa. A large population living in Delhi works in Gurgaon. So the stretch from Dholakwa going all the way on the national highway up to Gurgaon is continuing, will continue to be choked. The solution actually is, how do you get cars off the road? I mean, why should everybody take out his or her own car and do the journey? Why can't we use the metro? I have myself used the metro several times, and I find that the metro is a much better option. But then for many people, the last mile connectivity is actually a nightmare, and therefore many people just can't use the metro, because the metro in Delhi, well, it's fairly good, but then in Gurgaon, you don't have a good coverage of the metro. So therefore, the last mile connectivity leaves a lot to be desired, and therefore many people are not really switching over to the metro. And therefore, unless and until you get cars off the road, you can keep having more and more tunnels and more flyovers. You can keep widening the roads, but it's just not going to solve the problem, because the car population is also increasing. Just look at the number of cars that are being sold every day in Delhi. So wider the roads, more cars, more traffic jams. It's a kind of a vicious circle. So unless and until we keep our cars in the garages and then start using public transport, I don't think we can really solve this problem at all.
Dr. Rao, how many cars are being added to the NCR's roads on a daily basis? Dr. Rao, do you have any idea of the statistics of the number of cars? All right, we'll come back to him in a moment. But let me go across to Pradeep Rawat. Mr. Rawat, is this a solution to travel to and from the National Capital Region from the Gurgaon region?
Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. To tell you the truth, I have lived long enough in Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida. I keep oscillating between all these three places quite often. And almost on a daily basis, I'm into Delhi, I'm into Gurgaon, and I'm into Noida as well. And the main problem is the most of time spent on the roads. And it's a matter of fact that when we are traveling either from Noida to Delhi to Gurgaon or Gurgaon to Delhi, the problem is there are too many bottlenecks at too many places. Even if one stretch of road is wide enough for people to travel nicely or freely, then suddenly one bottleneck comes up, and that literally destroys the whole momentum that is set for a car or any other vehicle to drive. The problem actually is the previous panelist was saying that more people should travel in a metro. But problem for the places like Gurgaon is, in places like Dwarka Expressway, there is no metro at all. It's only in the right beginning at the Gurgaon, their metro is there. Otherwise, there's no metro at all. Second problem is at certain places, the last mile connectivity, as he was mentioning, is right. It's not there. Especially in Gurgaon, public transport system is it is not there. So the problem is if a person tries to keep his car or a vehicle at home and he tries to travel by metro or something like a public transport, it is not there at all. So what government and the authorities need to do is provide a proper system, as if a person is leaving the house, he should be able to reach his destination at the right point of time by taking up public transport. If that happens, then a lot of problems will be solved. Otherwise, you will keep on adding the new roads, widening the roads, but the continuation of adding up of cars and the vehicles will continue to make the traveling a nightmare, which is already there. I hope government is listening. I hope the authorities are listening, and the people at least understand, until unless we all decide that we all need to save time. We need to, actually sometimes get into the metros or the public transport, then things will change. But the whole idea of widening the roads or making Dwarka Expressway or better roads will work only when everybody works in tandem along with each other, like a team, whether it's the commuters, whether it's the general public, or whether it's the government, or whether it's the authorities. Everybody needs to come together, work together, and make sure that things go smoothly on a right path. That is what I believe.
Back to Dr. Rao for a moment, sir. The urban extension road, which has also been opened up by the Prime Minister, that actually is meant to give a great deal of connectivity. It links up 3 national highways. It gives a great deal of connectivity to the northwest of Delhi, to the southwest of Delhi and Haryana, the border region as it were. Do you believe that could be actually a game changer, particularly if the eastern part of this urban extension road gets built? Because once it does, then you would actually have 4 ring roads in Delhi. The inner ring road, the outer ring road, you'd have the upper extension road as it goes all around. Then you'd have the eastern and western peripheral highways. So essentially 4 ring roads. Would that be of any help?
Yeah, see, these ring roads would only help you partially because many parts of Delhi still remain unconnected, and people coming from, like you said, that you've traveled all the way from Ames. So there are many people coming from central Delhi and from South Delhi and going all the way to Gurgaon and vice versa. So for them, it is still going to be a problem. So while these new set of routes that have been established, they would help. They would only help partially, and I don't think the problem will be solved completely. As has been said by the resident just now, I think it's very important that we look at the last mile connectivity to increase the ridership in the metro. In many places, the people are not using the metro because of the lack of last mile connectivity. In Gurgaon particularly, for example, if you take Udyog Vihar, for instance, where a large number of people from Delhi travel to Gurgaon just to work in that Udyog Vihar area, there is just no metro connectivity at all. So the expansion of the metro in Gurgaon itself is necessary. Otherwise, with increasing vehicle population, I think these efforts will not really help. They will partially help, but again, the number of vehicles are going to increase. So again, you will have choked roads. So
Zenit
this is only
Chaudhary,
a
would you
partial
agree?
solution.
Sure. Zenit Chaudhary, would you agree that unless there is a much, much bigger effort at actually moving away from private transportation to adopting public transportation, and let's face it, a lot of us hate doing that. We just feel it's not comfortable enough. We just feel that it affects our lifestyle. Until we get around to doing that, we're just going to face this complete nightmare.
Yeah, I totally agree with this point also. And apart from this, as told by Mr. Pradeep, like Gurgaon doesn't have much of the public transport facilities. If I have to travel to Delhi, I have to take my own vehicle because we are not so much connected to the metro inside Gurugram. And in Delhi also, see this whole planning, this two jo ye, highways hai, both of these are like more of, it requires more of, it is actually strategic planning, part of strategic planning, and it requires more of sustainable planning. Otherwise, you see, Delhi's problem is about systemic planning because there is lack of public transit ways and over reliance on the private vehicles. At the same time, if you see, if we talk about this UER is definitely going to help a lot of commuters because recently I have been to Chandigarh and it took me only 4 hours. I used that highway and it was a marvelous experience, I must say.
Right.
But inside Delhi, it is if we speak about on a larger scale. On larger scale, more strategic planning is required. Definitely, it is required. More transit ways are required. That is how I feel about it.
Samir Jasuja, the bottom line is that irrespective of where you are, whether you're in Delhi or you're in Gurgaon, you're going to hit a bottleneck on either side. You might have a wonderful experience, and it took me just less than 15 minutes on the Dwarka Expressway from Mahipalpur to the end of that Dwarka Expressway into Gurgaon. On the way back, it took me exactly the same amount of time, and that was a fantastic drive. The rest was a nightmare as always. So my point is, on either side, you face bottlenecks to which there are no solutions.
Look, a lot of the panelists have given a lot of valid suggestions, but we're forgetting three things. First of all, the traffic in the car volume in NCR is more than all the tier 1 cities put together. The population is the maximum. We have 33 million population compared to other cities. We have actually much better roads compared to other cities. And unfortunately, India has only got 6 or 7 tier 1 cities where it should be having many more. And that's the bigger problem. The second thing that I would like to highlight as a solution is that metro has become super successful and people are talking about last mile connectivity. That's really not the entire reason why many people are not taking the metro. The metro during office hours has become so jam-packed that people have to let go 3-4 trains to get onto the 5th or the 6th train. So what has to be really done is the volume of the velocity of trains has to increase, the number of coaches have to increase, and our metro, which is the lifeline of the city now, has to become far more efficient, and nobody's talking about that. Last mile connectivity has been addressed a lot. I live in Gurgaon, I work in Gurgaon, and I have over 500 people coming to my office in Gurgaon. Last mile connectivity is not as much of a problem today as much as that they can't get into the metro and get out of the metro at the right time. And they have to miss many metros. That is the bigger cause. And the second bigger cause is, of course, the reality is you can build more roads, but there'll be far more cars. There is population increase because of migration and the city is growing. And the government can only do that much, right? And they're trying their level best to create connectivity as much as they can. But it is a reality, and you look at Bangalore or you look at Mumbai, we are much better off than those cities, even though we have 3 times more population than that. So it's not all negative. Yes, traffic is going to be a part of our life. We're going to spend an hour, hour and a half, unless you choose to shift your residence and be close by to your work. And that's why Gurgaon was created. That's why Noida was created, with affordable housing, and a lot of commercial office space got created so that people could move there and they don't have to travel 1.5 hours to 2 hours from their place of home to their place of work.
Right.
So I think I would promote a lot of people to look at where they work. They should try and live nearby. And secondly, to suggest the government that they should increase the number of coaches and the velocity of the trains.
I do believe that's an important point, and that's been a long-standing demand, that the metro is great, but the capacity needs to rise dramatically because of the number of people who are actually using it. Be that as it may, this is a small step which brings some relief. I think the big question which none of us have really brought up is, why wasn't something like this done 20 years ago? Because then it would have had a benefit perhaps lasting for a period of time. Are we in a position to actually forecast where we are growing, and with that growth, what the pressures and stresses on commuting are actually going to be? It does appear in city across city that we just don't know. We leave it there for the moment. From all of us here, good night.
And that's why it's being said that after Kaho Na Pyare,
Yeah.
this is the film that has got two superstar debutants who are becoming superstars. But what was this faith that you had on these two that that shows on screen?
You don't plan to make a blockbuster. You plan to make a good film. And that's what I think they never let me, they didn't put that pressure on me to live up to. They never gave me a number that we have to hit, or a so-called figure that I have to open to. There was, all these trappings were just not there, which normally producers do end up putting that pressure. Then you make wrong things. Then you add a song for a shadi song, add a Punjabi song. All these trappings were not there in this film. They were like, just go there and make your film. Do this script. We love this script and make it honestly. And I think the minute that happened, a filmmaker I could just spread my wings and just go out, not worrying about a few. I think when you do that, you get a little more fearless, and then that's what got picked up by people. So I cast appropriate for the film. I didn't cast thinking. I cast what felt right.
You were saying that you are going to say no to him.
Yeah. But that's his fault. Huh? He was now you see, now that we can talk about the film, Krish Kapoor cannot be a timid, sweet boy.
Yes,
sir, how are you, sir?
Last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this guy? He was a sweet boy. And then by the end of the night, I could see the boisterous self, and I could see the Krish Kapoor who could stand on top and say, don't forget this name, it's Krish Kapoor. So I think I was looking for that a bit. I needed a spark of that.
Pulling us into this country. They argue, I conclude. They deflect, I drill down. This isn't a free-for-all. It's a reckoning. No filler, no fog. Only the facts and where they lead. Every night at 9, the case closes because the buck stops here.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry, and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools, and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability. NDTV 24/7 is India's #1 English news channel on YouTube. Credible, compelling, always ahead of the curve. Thank you for choosing NDTV 24/7 as your trusted source for news.
हेलो बोलिए मैडम, डब्बा ट्रेडिंग कब से चल रहा है पता है मैडम आपको? हम और आप तो जन्म भी नहीं हुआ था हमारा.
We investigated a shady advisory firm that has spent big bucks on advertising on the front pages of national dailies.
ये आपको बिल्कुल उसका ऐसे हल्का सा भी खौफ नहीं है.
मैडम एक बात को खौफ किस लिए रखना चाहिए तो बताओ, कौन सा गलत काम कर रहा हूँ मैं?
After our report, we also saw NSE came out with a cautionary circular to the investors. Market Regulator Securities and Exchange Board of India has also come out with a release talking about the actions that it has taken. Cyber complaint has also been filed against the entities involved in this entire Dabba trading scam.
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
The colors, the culture, and the complexities of the Northeast is different from the rest of the country. I have been bringing the Northeast closer to the capital for over 15 years.
Madhya Pradesh is the heart of India, and I have been capturing its every beat for over 10 years, covering the corridors of power, what is said, what is left unsaid, and what it actually means for you and me. I have it all covered.
Kashmir is often called paradise on earth, a region that has been in a state of flux from conflict to India's crowning glory. I have been reporting and decoding Jammu and Kashmir for last 3 decades.
Vanakkam Tamil Nadu.
Now the battle for Tamil Nadu 2026 is open now.
After Chief Minister Stalin rolls up his sleeves and Vijay steps in as a star challenger.
This is a mass gathering, not for cash.
Meanwhile, a former Chief Minister, Edapadi Palanisamy, begins his fight back.
The big comeback campaign by EPS has well and truly begun.
These are all the ultimate players, and this is going to be the ultimate test.
Mohit, you are known for your music. All your films, musics stay with us till today. I'm a millennial and those music are kind of music. So whenever we say Mohit Suri film aa raha hai, we know the music will be good, right? It's a given. So you really work hard. But is this always like how you create your music? You need everything in place, the mood, the lighting, even when the person is in the studio and just singing. And also, how did you select your musicians that this person's voice is perfect for this song?
You know, that's what I think, the amount you give to a song, that's how long it will last, I think. Everyone does the programming, everyone writes the words, everyone makes the thing. But the thing is how much you give, how much of heart you give to the lyrics or to the music or to the melody or to the singing. That's how long the song will last, is what I genuinely feel. If you don't give that love, you're not going to get it back. It's just a simple debit and credit procedure, I think, with the audience. I genuinely feel I don't have any special skill. I don't know any scale or anything else. It's just that I enjoy that process a lot. Give me an evening to just go for a film party or something, I'll skip it. But you give me like a struggling musician to go who has a great tune, some new guys, chill all night with them. I can do that. I can just sit there, make music and stuff like that. We just did that recently. Fahim came down. He just surprised us, and we met in my Bandra office. And Han was there, Aneet was there, and he made me hear his other songs and stuff like that. But it was it's so much fun. Because I just think making music, film, you still get to see something. Yeah. I think music is so amazing. You just
don't need to see anything.
It's in the air and suddenly it just comes together.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Shah. Tonight, power play at the White House, days after his high-stakes Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin, President of the United States of America. Donald Trump, he's turning the heat on Ukraine's wartime leader. Volodymyr Zelensky lands in Washington to face tough demands, from giving up Crimea to shelving NATO ambitions, with Trump putting the onus on Kiev to end the war, and top European Union leaders, they are obviously rallying behind Zelensky. The question is, will Ukraine be forced to compromise on sovereignty or stand its ground against global pressure? All eyes are now on that historic Trump-Zelensky meeting that could redefine the future of this war and, more importantly, the entire future of Europe.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky touched down in Washington Sunday night, joined by 7 of Europe's most powerful leaders. Their mission is cut out to face a new diplomatic front with Donald Trump. And POTUS isn't backing down. Ahead of Monday's high-stakes meeting, he's laid out 2 non-negotiables. Ukraine must give up Crimea and forget about joining NATO. But Zelensky maintains Ukraine won't be bullied into surrendering land. The Ukrainian president insists that a ceasefire must come first before any lasting peace.
Передусім, я не знаю, про що реально говорили Путін і президент Трамп. І я хочу, щоб багато деталей президент Трамп сказав мені, потім європейським лідерам. І те, що президент Трамп сказав сигнал про гарантії безпеки, для мене це набагато важливіше, ніж думки Путіна. Тому що Путіна не дасть ніяких гарантій безпеки.
But it's Trump's private summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska last week that's raising eyebrows. Trump's envoy claims Putin agreed to US security guarantees for Ukraine, even possible land swaps. But the Kremlin hasn't confirmed a word on it.
The Russians agreed on enshrining legislatively language that would prevent them from, or that they would attest to not attempting to take any more land from Ukraine after a peace deal, where they would attest to not violating any European borders.
Meanwhile, Russian troops are gaining ground with their biggest 24-hour advance in over a year. And civilians are still paying the price. In Zaporizhzhia, a 15-year-old boy was killed, his entire family wounded. Still, NATO allies say they're ready to deploy a reassurance force the moment fighting stops.
Ces forces-là n'ont pas vocation ni à tenir une ligne de front, ni à être engagées sur un conflit chaud, mais à signer une solidarité d'un point de vue stratégique. Ça, c'est le deuxième pilier. Donc c'est ça dont il faut qu'on discute avec les Américains. Qui est prêt à faire quoi?
But as war rages and diplomacy tightens, the question remains, will peace come with a price Ukraine can accept? Bureau Report, NDTV World.
Well, will there be peace or not? We'll only get that answer after this particular meeting, and it's a crucial meeting. We'll try and get a sense of how things unfold, what will come out from this particular meeting. But before I go to our reporters who are covering this from the ground, let me go across to Vadim Halaishuk. He's a member of parliament from President Zelensky's party. Mr. Halaishuk, welcome to NDTV. Thank you for having me. My first question to you is, how do you view President Trump's reported demand that Ukraine should give up Crimea? Is that something that your parliament could ever accept?
Well, that's the major question now on what really has been discussed in Alaska and what are the proposals that Russia made. Because we did not receive anything in writing, anything official. So far, it's just the rumors. The term itself, exchange of the land, or swap of the lands, is wrong because we are talking about Ukrainian land. Swapping Ukrainian lands for Ukrainian lands doesn't make much sense at all. Therefore, we have formed a position, and here in Ukraine, and also with our European partners, that the current line of hostilities would be a start for negotiations. We are prepared to recognize that we do not have control over those territories that are occupied by Russia. That's the reality. We are prepared to talk about what the arrangements might be and to undertake the obligation not to try to regain the control over those territories by military force, for example, and so on and so forth. But giving those territories as a gift to the aggressor state is out of the question. It's not possible under Ukrainian constitution, and it's not possible under the UN statutes when you change the borders by military actions.
You know, Donald Trump has also said that there should be no NATO for Ukraine. What does that mean for your country's long-term security aspirations?
We made it very clear that Ukraine will not fall for another Budapest memorandum-like guarantees or assurances. 30 years ago, we have accepted the Budapest memorandum, to which, by the way, Russia is also the signatory, as sort of a hopeful guarantee that we will not come under attack. And of course, Russia is the obvious suspect there. Therefore, we made it very clear that if guarantees are given, whatever it is, NATO, other alliances, it has to be a very much different guarantee with troops on the ground, with exact legally assured presence of our allied troops and weaponry for Ukraine. Because we've learned over these years that the best guarantee that we can hope for are well-armed and well-trained, which we already have, Ukrainian armed forces, and those allies who are ready to stand with us.
Okay, when we speak about Ukraine's sovereignty, Mr. Halashuk, do you fear that Ukraine is being forced to negotiate from a position of weakness?
No, we don't feel that. As a matter of fact, quite often this issue of the pre-World War II scenario where Czech Republic back then was forced into the arrangements, this is quite different. I mean, here we have our European allies with us, doing everything they can. Here we have President Trump, and we appreciate it very much. We see how much effort is going into this, working very hard on making the proper arrangements. Therefore, no, this is not a position of weakness. This is, as a matter of fact, a demonstration of united and therefore very strong position that Ukraine has with its allies proposed to Russia. And this is the last proposal Russia might actually have that is more or less viable proposal.
Okay, so when you say that, what would be Ukraine's red lines in any peace deal?
Any legal recognition of those territories that Russia has taken by force, any demands to give up more territory is definitely a red line. And any demands from Russia that Russia has a say on what alliances Ukraine chooses, what its foreign policy should be, is completely unacceptable, especially after what the Russians did here.
Okay. So, you know, the European leaders, they're also backing President Zelensky. Does Ukraine feel it has a stronger hand in standing up to the US pressure with this backing? And also, are you confident that the European Union unity will hold if Trump pushes for concessions and Europe opposes?
Well, Russian aggression is not just against Ukraine. It's against the international order as it is, and obviously against the European or Euro-Atlantic alliance as a whole. Therefore, we have our European partners standing together with us because they understand what might follow if the aggressor is awarded for their aggression. Therefore, our strength is in our unity. And now our common task is to persuade President Trump that it's in best America's interest to stand with its European allies and persuade Russians to do the best they can. And we know America has the tools of persuasion for Russia to keep this unity and put an end, a durable and viable peace agreement that might come.
Okay, but there is also a very high risk that Washington might push a little too hard. And if the Washington pushes too hard, does Ukraine risk losing trust in its in a very strong ally, in a very powerful ally?
Of course, America is our strongest and best ally, and of course, without America, it would be extremely difficult for us. But as I said, Ukrainian military and Ukrainian people are the strongest support that we may ever have. Okay. Ukraine is very different from what it was 3 years ago. Therefore, with the Europeans and with, U.S. is a democracy which functions as a democracy, and there's huge support, bilateral support in the Congress and in the Senate in the U.S. So we absolutely sure that arrangements could be made for that support to continue.
Okay, one final question from you, Mr. Halashuk. What is your message tonight to the Ukrainians who are watching this unfold, and to all the world leaders who are going to be deciding your country's future?
Well, to my fellow Ukrainians, keep calm. My mother is calling me twice a day asking what's going on, and this is very difficult emotionally, of course. So read the official news. We are prepared. We are backed by very strong, politically strong, economically strong countries, and we are sure that we will prevail because our cause is right. So therefore, the unity is our best hope, the unity internally in the country and the unity with our partners. We are as strong as ever in terms of our alliances.
All right. Mr. Vadim Halashuk, thank you very much for speaking with NDTV, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let me also go across to my colleague Priyanka Deo, who's joining us from Chicago, Illinois. Priyanka, how is the United States administration framing this stance? Is it about peace? Is it about pressure on Ukraine? How do you view it?
Hi, thanks for having me on the show. Greetings from the U.S. Well, the world is watching, including the U.S. And as Trump once again reemerges on the world stage, he just spoke with Putin in Russia, right? Yeah. This is actually one of the most closely watched relationships with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Ukraine, as your speaker before said, is backed by a strong but strained alliance, I would say. NATO countries, the EU, the US right now, UK, Poland, and Germany. But the cracks are beginning to show, right? That's not what the Ukrainians said before. They're not going to say it if they're representing Ukraine. The cracks are beginning to show. Public opinion in Europe is cooling. Aid fatigue is rising, especially in Washington, D.C., and Zelensky himself has lost favor with segments of his own people who feel that the war is just dragging on and on with no clear end in sight and no strategy. Now, this reality actually gives Trump leverage. Zelensky is on his way to meet Trump right now. But Ukraine's survival actually depends very, very heavily on U.S. money and weapons, meaning that Trump can effectively boss over Kyiv, Ukraine, far more than he could with other partners.
Right. We also have Nick Harper joining us from Washington, D.C. Nick, there are a lot of European Union leaders who are present there, who are going to be a part of this meeting. Do the European Union leaders fear that Ukraine may be forced into concessions that Europe cannot accept?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see this show of support that we have today from the Europeans. The leaders from 4 countries, Britain, France, Germany and Italy, as well as the NATO Secretary General and the EU Chief, all here in attendance to stand alongside President Zelensky. They've been turning up at the White House over the course of the last 45 minutes or so. And there was a suggestion heading into Monday's meeting whether they were here to ensure that President Zelensky was not bullied into making a bad deal. That's something that the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio laughed off. He said that that was certainly not the case, that there was not going to be pressure from Donald Trump to try and get Ukraine to agree to things it didn't want to. However, Donald Trump has made it very clear in the last 24 hours there are certain things that he wants from Ukraine, and those are things that the Russian president is demanding, including handing over Crimea to Russia, to give up any territorial claim on that territory that Russia annexed back in 2014, and telling President Zelensky that he can never join NATO. There is also a suggestion that the Donetsk region will be very heavily part of the focus today. Donald Trump perhaps pushing what President Putin wants for Ukraine to hand over that region, even though Russia has not fully captured all of it during this 3.5-year conflict. But what we do know, certainly, having those European leaders in the room, all of which are standing in lockstep on where they believe things should be heading, that Ukraine should maintain its territorial stability and its integrity, will help the Ukrainian president to try and push back if the president of the United States is asking for things that President Zelensky is not willing to give up.
All right, Nick Harper and Priyanka Deo, we'll keep coming back to you as things develop. Let me also go across to Dr. Brahma Chilani, a strategic affairs expert. I also have Professor Anuradha Chinoy, the former Dean and Chairperson, Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies, JNU. Dr. Chilani, to you first. We have been running those pictures of that earlier meeting at the Oval Office of Mr. Zelensky and President Trump. Do you expect it to be a little different this time? Do you think that it is going to be a repeat of that Oval fiasco?
Not really. I think it'll be more focused on Trump seeking to push Zelensky to accept an end to the war. After all, the continuation of the war depends very heavily on continued US support. Without US support, Zelensky and Europe are not in a position to continue the war. So it's the US is the main player. But on the larger picture, we should not forget two things. First, you mentioned Crimea. That's only one area that Russia occupies. Russia seized the peninsula of Crimea in 2014, and consequent to its 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Russia occupies the whole of Luhansk and much of the other three regions. And those other three regions are Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. And it's clear that Putin has no intent of rolling back his occupation of those areas. And we should also be clear why Trump is pressing for a ceasefire.
Dr. Chilani, I'll come back to you. These are the visuals that you are getting from the White House. President Donald Trump meeting Volodymyr Zelensky. This is quite an interesting exchange. It was a warm handshake. And Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky seem to have, struck a different tone today. It's just the beginning of that meeting. We don't want to read a little too much into that. But Volodymyr Zelensky, he has arrived at the White House. Donald Trump, the US president, receiving him. And this meeting is going to start in just a short while from now. All right, let me go back to Dr. Brahma Chilani. Yes, sir, please complete your chain of thoughts. And also, what I want to understand from you is that Donald Trump, he has been pressing Ukraine to give up land and NATO ambitions. How should we, India, read this shift in US strategies?
First, on the facts. On the battlefield, Russia holds the strategic initiative. The military momentum is with Russia. Russian forces continue to advance in Ukraine, even if slowly. They continue to capture new territory almost every month. So the uncomfortable truth for Washington is that it risks losing a proxy war into which it has poured vast resources. Trump appears to recognize this. In the Alaska summit, it was clear that his push for a negotiated end to the war is designed to cut America's losses and refocus US strategy on the larger threat the US faces from China. After all, when you look at China and Russia in terms of their power capabilities, China dwarfs Russia in economic power, military spending, and technological capabilities. And at the global level, the US has only one challenger, which is China. Russia's ambitions are regionally confined. And what the Alaska summit showed was that Trump is seeking a reset. He is signaling America's recognition that its own missteps have helped drive Russia closer to China fueling a de facto alliance that poses the gravest threat to America's global preeminence. So what Trump is seeking to do is to change policy that has turned two natural rivals into close strategic collaborators.
Yeah.
He wants to prioritize improved relations with Russia. That was the main outcome of the Alaska summit. And for India, that really is good news because pushing Russia closer to China affected India's vital interests.
Yeah.
And therefore, a reappraisal of American policy and recognition that Washington's miscalculations have helped build the China-Russia partnership is good news for India.
Yeah. Before I go to Professor Anuradha Chinoy, let me go back to my colleague Nick Harper, who's there at Washington, D.C. Nick, the president of Ukraine, he has arrived. There was, a brief handshake. There were words spoken. What did you make of that brief exchange?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a very warm exchange. Donald Trump putting his hand on President Zelensky's shoulder, a long handshake, and then both of them turning to the press, smiling for several seconds, waving to the press as well. President Zelensky there putting up his hand. And Donald Trump, before the car arrived, just before President Zelensky got out of the car, seemed to make a single-fisted salute, something that Donald Trump sometimes does to signify victory. But I think it is worth bearing in mind that back in February, just before that colossal bust-up in the Oval Office, there was a similar very warm greeting between the two leaders. A warm greeting that really gave nothing away about what was to take place within the next hour or so within the Oval Office. So really all bets are off. A very friendly, warm welcome. But what will happen now behind closed doors? It's very difficult to tell.
Yeah, in fact, Nick, these are pictures coming from the Oval Office. President Trump sitting in the exact same position where he was the last time around, and President Zelensky pretty much dressed the same way that he was the first time as well. Let's in fact listen to what is being said.
A lot of good talks, and I think progress is being made. Very, very substantial progress in many ways. We had a good meeting, as you know, just a short while ago with the President of Russia, and I think there's a possibility that something could come out of it, and today's meeting is very important. We have, I guess, the seven very powerful leaders from Europe, and we're going to be meeting with them right after this meeting, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation, and thank you very much for your efforts. Personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you. And using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, adopted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want
Yeah. So we're saying this sensitive topic, Yes, please. And thanks to our partners, and that you supported this format, that after our meeting we can have leaders who are around us, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, EU, NATO, I mean all partners around Ukraine supporting us. Thanks to them, and thank you very much for invitation.
Thank you very much for being here.
President Trump.
Do you think it's fair?
Yes, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be, look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
if the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you roll that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Mr. President, Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended. It was, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one, and it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one. A lot of reasons for it, and they'll be talking about it for a long time. But they'll be talking about the others. Look, India, Pakistan. We're talking about the big places. When you look at, you just take a look at some of these wars. You go to Africa and take a look at that. Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo. That's been going on for 31 years. And so we've done a total of 6, and we really have 6, not including the fact that we obliterated, and it turned out to be a total obliteration, the nuclear, as you said, the future nuclear capability of Iran. And this one, I think we're going to get solved also. I feel confident we're going to get it solved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you tell us about your conversations with European leaders and what they need to see to support an end to the war?
Yeah, well, we're going to be meeting with a great representative group and 7 very powerful, very big countries, great people, all friends of mine and friends of yours. And we're going to have some suggestions made. They want to see peace. They would like to see peace.
President Trump, when did Russia, you said last night.
In the red.
President Trump, do you think it's fair to, for Ukraine and for Russia to achieve a lasting and durable peace if Ukraine cedes its territories that Russia hasn't yet conquered? Do you think it's a fair peace for Ukraine?
We're going to have a lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace. I hope it's going to be immediately. I hope it doesn't have to go on. And I think people of the whole world is going to be very happy when that's announced.
Thank you, Mr. President. You posted on social media, Mr. President, a very touching letter from the First Lady. And the letter was hand-delivered to President Putin. And it calls for an end to the war, essentially, because of the children and the children's future. Why did the First Lady feel that letter was necessary? Was it because she believes that Mr. Putin is the aggressor in the war? Is a similar letter being hand-delivered to President Zelensky?
So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves. Probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. I mean, she sees the heartbreak, the parents, the funerals that you see on television. Always funerals. We want to see something other than funerals. No, she felt it was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him. And she did ask me to say, you know, she would love to see this end. She would love to see it end, and she says it very openly, very proudly, and with great sorrow because so many people have been killed.
Mr. President, last week,
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you. First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time. See, now I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. I changed your
Maybe yours is much better than mine. Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances. And a little bit, we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth. Yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, in the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections. Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
you like this idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, you know, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. You know, I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about. It was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and you know, this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity. anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so the people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said, but they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. You know, there's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. You know, its credibility is at an all-time low. We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years, and Washington, D.C. is safe, and you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you, it's safe. I had another friend of mine, he has a son who's a great golfer, he's on tour, and he came in 4th yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot, and he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way, no way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time. Thank you.
I walked around yesterday with MTG. If you can walk around with D.C. with MTG and not be attacked, the city is safe.
Sir, on the security guarantee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a
President
ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept, you know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Can you explain the decision to offer Ukraine Article 5-like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today, but we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, they are, I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out also.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President
Are you
Trump.
disappointed there's no
The United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine. At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years, he was not a smart man 40 years ago either. But now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, If I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this. And through NATO program, for example, Pearl and etc., we have some programs where we can have some money to finance this. And this is a part, I think, it's not a part for the war and to defend us. It also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important. And it depends how much money we need to rearm. For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example. We need it very much, and this is also about defending.
You know, I think the good news, we make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Systems.
We have systems, they're literally 100% foolproof. And it's really like shooting two bullets, you know, two bullets hitting each other in the air in a space like this. The chances, 100%. It's 99 to 100%. So we sell the equipment to NATO. And NATO does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have the equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And we've made more progress in settling this war in the last 2 months than they made in 4 years. This should have been settled a long time ago, but it should have never happened. Yeah, please.
Real quickly, you pushed out on social media.
Brian, go first.
You pushed out on social media about doing away with mail-in ballots and potentially electronic voting machines. Can you expand on that and how important
Well, that's a very off-topic, just really quickly. Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people but most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. Sorry. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt. You know, when you go to a voting booth and you do it the right way, and you go to a state that runs it properly, you go in, they even ask me. They asked me for my license plate, for identity. I said, I don't know if I have it. They said, sir, you have to have it. I was very impressed, actually. But it's very hard to cheat with mail-in voting. As you know what happens in California, it's so corrupt, where some people get 5, 6, 7 ballots delivered to them. Now, we got to stop mail-in voting, and the Republicans have to lead the charge. The Democrats want it because they have horrible policy. If you have mail-in voting, you're not going to have many Democrats get elected. That's bigger than anything having to do with redistricting, believe me. And the Republicans have to get smart. We're not going to have a country. I said for a long time at rallies, you need borders and you need free and fair elections. Those two things, otherwise you don't have. We have strong borders now. In 90 days, Mr. President, we didn't have 1, 0, 0 in 3 months. Not one person came in illegally into our country. In fact, even I find that hard to believe, but it's run by a little bit of a liberal group that put out the numbers, so I guess it's, but 0, 0, and 0. You go back a year ago, 2 years ago, 3, millions of people poured into our country. It was terrible. Thank you very much.
From President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. And really, it includes 2 parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you willing to commit American troops to that NATO-like protection in order to get President Zelensky to a deal today?
Well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we're going to give, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. I mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Mr. President, was there any aspect of your discussion with Vladimir Putin that left you disappointed?
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much.
All right, from frosty exchanges in February of this year to warm handshakes, President Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, they're strikingly different, in a strikingly different tone today. Both the leaders, they appeared side by side. There were smiles, there were assurances of cooperation. The question that now everyone is going to be asking, has Washington, Kiev reset its script? Well, it is too early to speculate that, but could this camaraderie reshape the push for peace in Ukraine is the big question. So that crucial meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump taking place, there were handshakes, there were smiles. Let me go back to Dr. Brahma Chilani. Dr. Chilani, there were a lot of questions that were asked, and I want to focus on a couple of them. The first thing is, when President Trump, he was asked, is this the end of the road? He kept it open-ended. But when you look at it, when you look at the entire situation in the larger context, is this the last chance that the United States has to end this war?
Yes, this is a pivotal moment. It's very clear, as he himself put it, President Trump, that if things go well in the discussions today, there would be a trilateral, that is, Trump, Zelensky, and Putin meeting together. That would signal that an end to the war was coming. But if the discussions don't go well, according to Trump, then there would be no trilateral. If there is no trilateral, the stalemate would continue, and that would be bad news for the Ukrainians because the war really is devastating large parts of Ukraine. And Ukraine is actually running out of young men that it can enlist in its armed forces. So Ukraine faces very hard choices. But for the US, the choice is more geopolitical. The bedrock of US grand strategy for many decades was to keep Moscow and Beijing apart. Richard Nixon's 1972 opening to Beijing was not about cozying up to Mao's brutal regime. It was about exploiting the Sino-Soviet split by co-opting China in an informal alliance to contain and roll back Soviet power and influence. That strategy helped the West to win the Cold War, not militarily, but geopolitically. But today, the US confronts a new 2-against-1 dynamic. In this new 2-against-1 competition, America is at the receiving end. America's policies have pushed Russia and China closer together. But the main beneficiary of this Sino-Russian collaboration is China. China has been the primary gainer from this reconfiguration of the strategic triangle. In fact, sanctions by the US and its other allies have effectively handed a resource-rich Russia to a resource-hungry China. Beijing has also chipped away at Russian influence in Central Asia, bringing former Soviet republics into its orbit. So Trump, clearly, as the Alaska summit showed, wants to change this. He wants better relations with Moscow so that US policy can focus on China, the key threat.
Okay. Let me also get Professor Anuradha Chinoy into the conversation. Professor Chinoy, there were two sets of questions that were asked to the Ukrainian president. He was asked whether it is a fair peace deal if Ukraine had to cede territory. And again, something on the same lines, which was he prepared to, in fact, redraw the map and if he has to achieve peace. To both of these questions, he just said that we are under attack, we need to stay focused, and there was no definitive answers. What do you make of those statements from President Zelensky as well?
I think Zelensky recognized the fact that a large part of Ukraine, 22% or 23%, is occupied by Russia. It's become part of the Russian Federation. They have changed their constitution and it's been absorbed as Russian territory, so they're not getting it back. And I think he recognizes that he's not getting Crimea either. And in fact, if this war doesn't stop, Russia is going to keep advancing. And in addition to the 4, they could get an additional 4 at the rate that they're advancing. So I think he has to recognize reality. And the other thing is, it was clear that the United States wants out of this war. And if they don't get it tonight or in the coming days, they're going to just give the ball to the Europeans. So I think they're all under pressure. Mr. Trump to his domestic constituencies, where he's promised peace repeatedly. That is why he disassociates himself from this war. He's not wanting to be responsible for a defeat on the battlefield, which he recognizes. He doesn't want to be in a situation like there was in Afghanistan or earlier in Saigon in Vietnam. So he is in a rush. You can see how quickly things are unfolding. You know, one meeting on Friday, another on Monday. The trilateral could be 3. And the other thing is, I think giving bilateral security guarantees is a good idea. The Russians seem to have agreed on it, though they have not made any statement. But they would give a guarantee that they're not going to take any more territory if they get the Donbass, if they get what they have. And obviously, they'll give a guarantee that they're not interested in Europe. They never were. So that's easy. And they're also keen to end the war, to get the sanctions out. So it looks like an opportune moment.
All right, Professor Anuradha Shenoy and Dr. Brahma Chilani, thank you very much for getting us all those different perspectives. We'll go back to Priyanka Dev in just a bit, but before that, we'll slip into a very, very short break.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
You know, first, when Sayara released and we as audience realized, oh my God.
All right, welcome back. There were smiles, there were laughter, there were handshakes during this meeting between the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and the US President Donald Trump. Donald Trump has promised that there is going to be lasting peace. There were no meltdowns this time, only niceties. In fact, Donald Trump, he welcomed Mr. Zelensky to the White House and he says that he is hoping for lasting peace immediately. Trump says that Ukraine will see peace very soon and that he will work with Russia as well as Ukraine in order to achieve peace in this particular conflict. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky, he also appreciated the United States' help in what he says, ending the war. And Donald Trump, he also in fact went on to say that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, he wants to see the end of the war as well. The Ukraine war must have settled long back. Listen in to some of the reactions first.
Thank you, President Trump. So, President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
Well, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
All right, let me go back to Priyanka Dev. Priyanka, you know, from February and that Oval fiasco to now, to this bonhomie, to this camaraderie, President Zelensky even getting complimented for wearing that suit. What did you make of that interaction?
Thank you. Well, let's keep it clear. I mean, it's optics to an extent, but Zelensky was furious just a few days ago. Furious that talks with Moscow happened without him in the room. Furious that Trump managed to shift the global spotlight, as did Putin, right? And furious that Ukraine suddenly looked like, I would say, a junior partner in its own war. Now, the only reason that the U.S. is aiding Ukraine is because Trump wants to check Putin and he really wants to end the war. He's made that clear, right? Zelensky has also lashed out publicly and demanded stronger Western backing against Russia. But at this point, his anger proves Trump's point that Washington decides how far negotiations go. If you notice, Putin met Trump in Alaska in the United States, and Zelensky has met Trump in, not in Alaska, sorry, in the Oval Office, both in the United States.
Yeah.
So Washington is definitely still very much dictating the pace of this negotiation, right? And that's why Zelensky is being nice and polite right now, because Trump is going to aid him. So of course he's going to be nice and say thank you, right?
Yeah.
But Zelensky's track record has not helped him. And this is where it gets tricky, because all of the people that are aiding him are going to be in the same room, right? All of the people aiding him are in Washington, D.C. right now. So he has to be nice. He doesn't have another choice. But at the same time, he's proved very, very hypocritical. I mean, let's not forget, while his people were suffering under bombs, while his country was at war, this guy posed for a Vogue photo shoot with his wife, right? He has very slipping popularity at home because there is no strategy. He's not giving his people a pathway out of this war, and they are losing their lives, right? I think a speaker before had said that Ukraine doesn't have men to enlist in their army anymore, right? So it has to end. So his track record also raises questions about whether he genuinely prioritizes the well-being of his own people, or he's just trying to stay in the spotlight over here. So I think a trilad would be very beneficial. As Trump said, if a trilad happens, I do think that what we can expect here is a balancing act. I mean, Trump can actually project dominance over Zelensky, right? He said, come to the US, Zelensky was on the next flight, right?
Yeah.
So I think Putin, meanwhile, will play along just enough to kind of advance Russia's strategic goals while testing how far Trump is willing to bend. Trump has learned, especially from India, that he cannot bulldoze over top 5 countries. Russia is another top 5 country. So Trump has learned the hard way that he just can't slap sanctions on India. He just can't slap high sanctions on high tariffs on Russia either. So he's going to play it as a negotiator. Maybe he will change his strategic goals. But I do think that you can expect fiery optics if there is a trilad, plenty of posturing, perhaps some symbolic deals here and there. But the hard reality here is that with Russia, Trump kind of faces a peer who knows how to play the long game. Let's not forget, Putin has been in power for 24 years now.
Yeah.
So I think that Trump has to be very, very tricky, very, very strategic. He does need to be a good negotiator and make sure that the US gets what it wants out of this, while at the same time exiting its stance in the war. I don't think we in the US want to fund Ukraine any more than we already have. As somebody stated in the Oval Office, one of the officials stated, US has already given hundreds of billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine.
Yeah. Priyanka, before we talk about the entire issue of redrawing the map, whether it is going to happen or not, let's also listen in to what Volodymyr Zelensky had said.
President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Sharp. Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky meet at the White House. Donald Trump promises that there is going to be lasting peace. There were no meltdown, only niceties. We'll get you all the details of that meeting. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. Trump-Zelensky meet begins at the White House. Donald Trump promises lasting peace and says that there is a reasonable chance to end the war. Zelensky says that he needs a diplomatic way to end the war. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi meets the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Wang Yi is now set to meet the Prime Minister Modi and the NSA Ajit Doval on Tuesday. India Bloc and NDA huddle over the Vice President election today. India Bloc yet to pick the candidate's name. DMK in the meanwhile pushes for a Tamil face. The question remains, would it be South versus South, and who will take on CP Radhakrishnan? The opposition ups its ante against the Election Commission of India. Will the opposition move impeachment against the Chief Election Commissioner? The opposition says that the right decision will be taken at the right time. Well, a crucial meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Donald Trump promising that there is going to be lasting peace. In fact, President Trump received Volodymyr Zelensky outside the White House. There were niceties, there were handshakes, there were smiles, there were waving to the press who were present there. And during that meeting and the meet with the reporters, the journalists there, Donald Trump, he in fact said that there is a need to end the war and there is a reasonable chance to end the war very, very soon. Zelensky replying